The moment when the reception hall instantly fell silent is still burned in my mind. It wasn't the kind of silence that follows a beautiful speech or a sweet first dance. No, it was the kind that slaps you across the face and dares you to cry in public. At my brother Ethan's wedding, I began, my voice steady but my chest burning with humiliation. His bride stood on stage and called teaching types like me ridiculous for talking about parenting, and the whole room erupted with laughter. The worst part was when my own mom, Eleanor, leaned into her champagne glass and said loud enough for the microphone to catch it. Even in brand clothes, clearance items are still clearance items. They all laughed harder. Every guest and fork paused midair, every smartphone capturing the moment, every chuckle that started small and grew into cackles that wrapped around my throat like a scarf made of shame. I sat there frozen. I could feel the blood rush to my cheeks, my ears ringing, my hands trembled slightly as I reached for my glass of water but couldn't lift it without spilling. I clenched my fingers into fists instead, digging my nails into my palms, hoping no one noticed how badly I was shaking. My eyes instinctively darted to Ethan, my baby brother who I'd helped put through college. He was up at the head table looking down into his lap. His face was blank, but his jaw twitched. His eyes flickered toward me once, just once, and then away like he couldn't bear to look. That tiny flicker of guilt in his eyes, it gutted me completely. I felt like I was 8 years old again, standing behind the garage where the neighborhood girls used to whisper about how weird I was, how poor my clothes looked. Except this time it wasn't strangers. It was my family, my own blood, with their designer outfits and perfect social media profiles. And for what? Because I'm a 34-year-old single mom? Because I couldn't afford the high-end boutique wardrobe that Tiffany flaunted? Tiffany, Ethan's partner, or rather bride now. She stood on that stage in her custom pearl white gown, holding the mic like it was a baton in a race she'd already won. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Not that it ever did beneath all those Instagram filters. I'd spent the past year watching her fake her way through every family event. Offering compliments that sounded more like insults, calling me inspiring for teaching and raising a child on my own like I was some charity case that just needed validation for simply functioning. And then there was my mom, Eleanor, the jewelry shop manager who used to braid my hair before school, now looked at me like I was an expired coupon, once valuable, now useless. Why did her words cut so deep into my heart? Why did I still care so desperately? Was I really that pathetic? Was my career educating children and being a single mom all I would ever be in their eyes? I sat perfectly still, my back straight as a ruler, the corners of my mouth forced into a polite smile that physically hurt to maintain. My son Mason sat next to me, clutching a napkin in both hands. His big brown eyes searched my face with that perceptive gaze that saw through everything, and I forced a smile so he wouldn't see the tears pooling in mine. He whispered, "Mom, why are they laughing at you? Should I show them your teacher awards on your profile?" His question shattered something deep inside me. I opened my mouth to answer, but no words came out, just a hollow ache. What could I possibly say? That sometimes people who are supposed to love you the most are the first to throw you under the bus? I wanted to leave, just walk out, grab Mason's hand and never look back to this wedding live streamed for all to see. But before I could even push my chair back, Mason did something I'll never forget. He suddenly stood up. There was no hesitation, just a quiet strength that didn't match his 9 years. He walked toward the stage, where the wedding hashtag glowed on a neon sign. I should have known that that wedding wouldn't be an easy one. Even in front of Tiffany's insults, my mom's cruel jokes, and everyone's laughter, I had already spent the entire day pretending that I was someone they could be proud to belong there. That morning, I stood in front of my mirror, trying to zip up a dress I bought with my salary. It was a little too tight and formal. But I needed something that didn't scream, single mom elementary teacher trying too hard. I tugged at the fabric of my dress and told myself it would be okay, but my heart sank with uncertainty. Mason walked in while I was checking my makeup. "You look like a movie star, Mom," he said, eyes wide with genuine admiration. I smiled even though I didn't believe him, my chest warming at his kindness. "Thanks, baby," I said, brushing his hair down gently. "You're my favorite hype man." I remember the drive to the venue, Mason humming in the back seat, asking if Uncle Ethan was nervous. I laughed and said, "Probably. Weddings are scary." I didn't say what I was really thinking. Family is scarier, especially when you're the outsider. Ethan and I were close once. He's 5 years younger than me, and I practically helped raise him when our dad left. I used to help him with homework, cover for him when he snuck out, and even helped pay for his college with my own student loans. For years it felt like it was just the two of us against the world, sharing a special bond that nothing could break. But that changed when he met Tiffany. She was polished, poised, Instagram ready, the kind of woman who walks into a room and makes you feel like you need to apologize for existing without a filter. I tried to be kind when he introduced us, I really did, my smile genuine. But she made it clear from day one I wasn't her type of people, gradually excluding me from their events. She once told me at dinner, "It's so inspiring that you're teaching and doing this alone," in that condescending tone, her manicured nails tapping on her phone. My mom loved her immediately. I could see it in the way she leaned in when Tiffany talked, how she laughed at every story, even the boring ones. Mom had never looked at me that way, not once. With me, she was always stiff, judgmental, like I was a reminder of all the things she didn't want to see in herself, my dad's eyes staring back at her. I used to think I was just being sensitive, that the knot in my stomach was just anxiety. That wedding proved otherwise. The venue was beautiful, white roses everywhere, soft violin music floating in the air, candlelight flickering off gold-rimmed glasses, wedding hashtag displays at every table. Everyone looked magazine perfect. Then there was me, worried about wrinkling my dress, adjusting my only heels, hoping Mason wouldn't stain his outfit, feeling every judgmental glance. He looked so proud though. "Do I look grown up?" he asked, adjusting his collar, his eyes bright with excitement. "You look like the man of the hour," I told him, my heart swelling with pride. And I meant it with every fiber of my being. As the night went on, I smiled, nodded, made small talk with guests who barely remembered my name. I laughed at jokes I didn't find funny, my cheeks aching. I held my head high even when I caught a few glances from Tiffany's friends as they snapped selfies, whispering. I was surviving until that mic moment happened and everything I had held together, my composure, my pride, my years of pretending, came crashing down around me. The laughter felt like daggers piercing straight through my chest. And I saw something in Mason's eyes that changed everything. Not fear, not confusion, but fierce protection. He wasn't going to let them laugh at me, not without saying something. So he stood up and walked toward the stage, and I just sat there, holding my breath, my heart pounding against my ribs. My heart dropped as I watched Mason walk toward the stage. At first, I thought he was just confused, maybe going to get a napkin or follow the sound of the music, or God, I don't even know. I hoped he'd just come back to the table, that this whole moment would pass, that somehow I could melt into my chair and pretend I hadn't just been humiliated in front of 100 people and whoever was watching the live stream. But he kept walking, slow, purposeful, each little step tapping across the glossy wood floor like a countdown I couldn't stop. People started to notice. A few turned in their seats, phones already raised. Someone whispered, "Is that her kid, the teacher's son?" I could feel every stare slicing across my skin like paper cuts. I stood up halfway, reaching out like maybe I could call him back without making a scene. "Mason." I hissed, my voice tight, barely audible, my chest constricting with panic. "Come back here." But he didn't glance back, just climbed the 2 steps onto the stage where Tiffany had been moments ago, her bouquet now resting on the table's edge, the wedding hashtag sign glowing behind him. The DJ leaned down, trying to nudge him gently. "Hey, buddy, this isn't." But Ethan raised a hand from his seat and said, "Let him speak." That caught everyone's attention. My baby, observant, soccer-playing, book-loving 9-year-old now stood in front of a microphone, both hands gripping the stand like it was keeping him grounded. He looked so small, dwarfed by the tall white roses behind him, but something about the way he held himself made him look 10 feet tall to me, my heart swelling with both fear and pride. The room quieted. Even Mom put down her champagne flute. Tiffany, who had been busy fake laughing at something one of her bridesmaids whispered, stiffened her face. And then he spoke. "I know something about the bride," he said. No shaking, no stammering, the voice I'd heard reading book reports to his class. My heart pounded so hard I could barely hear the silence in the room. My hands were clammy, my mouth dry, my pulse thudding against my throat like it was trying to claw its way out. Please don't say anything embarrassing, I begged internally. Please don't say something he'll regret. Please don't make this worse for us both. But something in his voice, calm, clear, honest, made the whole room freeze, phones now capturing every second. Tiffany's smile twitched. She leaned forward, eyebrows raised. What are you talking about, sweetheart? She asked sweetly, but there was a tightness in her voice now, a crack in the porcelain perfection. Mason ignored her. He glanced at me for a moment, and I could see everything behind his eyes, his confusion, protectiveness, anger, quiet and powerful, conviction. Then he looked back at the guests. He said, I heard her say something before the wedding. Gasps fluttered through the room like a sudden gust of cold air. Tiffany's face shifted, just slightly, but I caught it, that flicker of panic, that momentary drop of her social media smile. I couldn't move. It felt like the floor under me disappeared, like the entire room was suspended in this one moment just before everything unraveled. And all I could think was, what did my perceptive little boy hear? Mason had been with me all day. He hadn't been around Tiffany alone, had he? And then I remembered, earlier that afternoon, I'd sent him to find the restroom while I helped tie Ethan's boutonniere. 5 minutes. That's all it took. He must have overheard something with those attentive ears that caught everything. The silence stretched thin as glass. No one breathed, no one moved, and Mason was about to drop something that would shatter it all, my heart racing with both dread and a strange, wild hope. I felt like I was underwater. Everything slowed down, the sounds around me, the flickering lights, even the nervous shuffle of people shifting in their seats and the soft click of smartphones capturing the moment. All I could hear was the rush of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears like a drum, warning of something big, something irreversible that would change our family forever. Mason still stood at the microphone, small hands gripping the stand, a wrinkle across his forehead, the kind he got when he was concentrating, like when he tried to solve a tricky math problem or beat a hard level in a video game. But this wasn't a game or a classroom presentation. I couldn't breathe, my chest tight with a mixture of terror and something else, a fierce, unexpected pride. Part of me wanted to rush up there and pull him back, whisper in his ear that it wasn't his job to fix this, that I was the adult and I could handle it. That I'd survived worse, barely, maybe, but I had, just like I'd survived the staff meetings where my teaching ideas were dismissed. But the other part of me, the part that still ached from the laughter, still burned with the sting of betrayal, knew I couldn't stop him because Mason had made a decision with that quiet determination he'd inherited from me. And I could see it in his face, he was standing up for me, for himself, for us, just as I taught my students to stand up for what's right. He cleared his throat, and in the quietest room I'd ever been in, even that tiny sound echoed beneath the glowing wedding hashtag sign. He said softly, I was looking for the bathroom before the wedding started. He glanced at me again, this time longer, his brown eyes steady with conviction. His face didn't ask for permission, it simply said, you taught me to speak the truth in class. I'm just doing what you taught me. I felt a tear slip down my cheek and quickly wiped it with the edge of my napkin, my heart swelling painfully. I wasn't sure if it was fear, pride, or both consuming me. I walked past this room, he continued, his voice carrying clearly through the sound system, and I heard Tiffany talking to one of her friends. Tiffany shifted in her designer gown, her mouth opened slightly like she was going to interrupt, but she didn't. Maybe she couldn't. Maybe she realized what was coming as her perfect Instagram moment crumbled. Mason's voice didn't tremble. She said she doesn't really want to marry Uncle Ethan. Gasps, audible now. Someone dropped a fork. A couple guests sat upright like they'd just been slapped awake, phones still recording. She said, Mason continued clearly, that she needed someone successful who'd give her a house and not question her spending, and that Ethan was too nice to say no. The words hung in the air like smoke from a fire nobody knew had started. Tiffany was frozen, eyes locked on Mason, mouth barely moving, her perfectly contoured face suddenly ashen. That's not true, she muttered, but no one seemed to hear or care through the heavy silence. And Mason paused, and my stomach flipped. I could feel it coming. I didn't know what it was, but I could feel it like the moment before a storm breaks. And she said, he went on, that once they were married, she'd make sure teacher types like my mom never showed up again. That was it. A full silence fell over the room. Not stunned, not curious, heavy silence, like grief or shame or truth finally spoken aloud. Mason looked straight at Tiffany, then back at Ethan, and finally at the guests. She said my mom was embarrassing, he added. But she's not. She's kind. She's brave. She works so hard teaching kids every day, and she never talks bad about anyone, even when they deserve it. His voice cracked slightly at the end, and I felt my chest cave in with emotion, tears flowing freely now. I didn't care what happened next. I didn't care who believed him or who tried to cover it up, because right then, on that wedding stage, my 9-year-old son did something most grown adults wouldn't dare to, he told the truth. And without realizing it, he turned the entire perfectly curated night on its head, exposing the reality behind the filters. The room didn't just fall silent, it froze. No one moved, no one breathed, phones still recording. It was like time itself held its breath after Mason's words dropped like a grenade in the middle of that perfect, polished, #ready wedding hall. Tiffany's smile had long since vanished. Her face was pale now beneath her perfect makeup, lips parted in disbelief. She looked around the room, searching maybe for someone to defend her, maybe for a hole to crawl into, her influencer persona crumbling before everyone's eyes. She didn't find either. Ethan stood slowly, not quickly, not dramatically, just like a man trying to steady himself in a storm he didn't see coming despite all the warning signs. Mason, he said, voice tight with emotion, can you come here, buddy? Mason nodded and walked toward him. Ethan bent down, said something I couldn't hear, then wrapped his arms around him, a long, tight hug, the kind I used to give him when we were kids. And that's when it hit me, Ethan wasn't angry. He was completely shattered, his carefully constructed future collapsing around him. He straightened up, eyes searching the crowd. Then he turned to Tiffany. You said that, he asked, his voice cracking with pain. Tiffany blinked fast, tried to recover, to smile, but it looked more like a grimace, her social media polish completely gone. Ethan, come on, she began. He's a just child. You're going to take the word of a kid over your partner? He didn't answer. She kept going. This is ridiculous. I was just joking around with my friends. You know how girls talk before weddings, we vent, we say stupid stuff. He misunderstood. He's 9. Her voice rose with each sentence, but the guests weren't buying it, their expressions hardening. I could feel the shift in the air, electric and undeniable. People who had laughed with her just half an hour ago were now whispering behind raised hands, exchanging looks, shaking their heads. Some even checking their phones as if regretting all the wedding photos they'd already posted. And then from the back of the room, a voice said something I'll never forget, I heard her too. Heads turned. It was Olivia, one of Ethan's college friends, the talented graphic designer who had drifted away when Tiffany came into the picture. Olivia stood up, hands clenched at her sides. I went into the bridal suite to bring Tiffany her shoes. She didn't see me, but she said exactly what Mason just said, word for word, plus details about her credit card debt. The air cracked open. Tiffany's face twisted, caught between rage and panic. Oh my God, are you all seriously doing this to me on my wedding night? After all those perfect photos we took. But she was the only one talking now. Ethan looked devastated, like someone had yanked the floor out from under him and he was still falling, still trying to find his footing in this new reality. I asked you so many times, he whispered to Tiffany. I asked if you loved me, if you were sure about us, and you kept saying yes, while planning our future on my credit cards. Tiffany's expression softened, calculated. She tried to reach for his hand, but he stepped back, his body language rejecting her for perhaps the first time. Ethan, she began, but he shook his head decisively. I don't know what's true anymore, he said, but I know my nephew didn't just make that up, and I know my sister never deserved the way we treated her after all she sacrificed for me. His words cut through me like lightning, sharp, unexpected, and blinding. For the first time all night, someone actually saw me, the real me beyond the teacher and its single mom labels. Tiffany didn't scream or cry. She just stood for a moment, then turned and walked out, heels clicking rapidly until the sound faded away, abandoning her fairy tale. Silence again. Then someone clapped, just one person, then another, and then the entire room was applauding. Not loud, not wild, but steady, real. Not for Tiffany, not for Ethan, but for Mason, for telling the truth when no one else had the courage. And I just sat there, hand over my mouth, crying into my napkin because somehow, in the most public and humiliating moment of my life, my son gave me back my voice and my dignity. The Instagram perfect evening had shattered, and in its place, something raw and painfully real lingered in the air, something no filter could ever enhance or disguise. I don't remember much after that. The applause faded into a blur. People drifted toward the bar or their tables, unsure what to do next. Ethan came over. I stood, wiping tears, bracing myself. He just gave me a tight, hearty hug. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "God, Vanessa, I'm so sorry." I let go, arms around him, years of hurt cracking like glass between us. I didn't know if everything would be okay, but he finally saw me. That was enough. Later, Mason and I sat in the car, the venue glowing faintly behind us. His face was soft with sleep, bow tie loose, curls damp from the night's tension. "You okay, baby?" I asked him. He nodded. "Are you?" That question hit me harder than anything at the wedding. "I think I am. I think I'm really okay." He paused, then said, "You're not a clearance item. You're the best teacher and mommy ever." My tears came again, but healing ones, warm like rain after drought. That night I tucked him in, holding longer than usual. "I'm so proud of you, Mason. You were so brave." He smiled sleepily. "You taught me." Everything shifted. I used to think being a single mom teacher made me less, like I was damaged. Not enough. But when my son defended me, he reminded me, I'm not weak. I'm not broken. I'm human, and I've survived more than most. Ethan postponed the honeymoon, needing time to think. We talked days later, really talked, and I felt something rebuilding between us. Slowly, honestly. Mom never apologized. She texted, "I'm sure you understand things got out of hand." I didn't reply. For the first time, I didn't need her approval because I had Mason and myself. People say weddings bring families together. This one removed masks, and I'm grateful. I gained clarity, truth, and a pride no teacher award could match. I wasn't the clearance item. I kept my integrity while others sold theirs cheap. And my 9-year-old in his clip-on tie reminded me of that. That's how my son stood up at the wedding and changed everything with a few honest words and a brave heart.